Those intense wildfires, blood orange skies, snow in September.
As if 2020 wasn't strange enough already, this was the morning commute over San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge this week.
Kind of spooky.
Apocalyptic is probably the right term to use. You know, every year they say this is the worst fire season ever, and it is. Every year builds on the last one, it seems like.
Yeah, it really does.
Parts of southern England were hit by a 3.3 magnitude earthquake this morning. The tremors gave these dogs and local residents a shock, shaking houses in Leighton Buzzard, where the epicentre was recorded. It was felt by people in Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire. There were no reported injuries.
Oh! Lord have mercy! Oh, it's the whole can feel the heat. Oh, you can feel the heat. Oh. It's so hot. Oh my God.
It's only started 2 days ago.
A rare earthquake rocked people this morning in New Jersey. This one was 3.1, hitting central Jersey, the epicenter in East Freehold.
A lot of people, I was going up to them and saying, did you feel the earthquake overnight? And they're like, what are you talking about? What earthquake? Like, yes, there was an earthquake. It's not often that we can actually feel one in New Jersey, but it did happen.
The quake reportedly was felt in parts of New York and Philadelphia as well.
It just shook.
My entire house was shaking. Thought someone broke in.
My wife and the dog and myself jumped out of bed.
A 3.1 magnitude earthquake centered near Freehold, New Jersey, woke a lot of folks up last night, including Amy Carr. In fact, it was her dogs acting nutty that woke her.
So I went to wake up my husband and he said, oh, you just had a bad dream, go back to sleep.
This morning, Ryan decided to check his surveillance video.
I went back to 2 a.m. and you hear a loud bang.
Breaking at this hour, did you feel it? One of the strongest earthquakes to shake the area did just that this morning, right on the Alabama-Florida state line in Pollard.
Yeah, the quake even showing up, Lanice, on South Alabama's seismograph. Look at that spike.
And shaking it was. Little did people know the earth was indeed moving under their feet.
We literally thought someone had hit the building.
The quake occurred more than 6 miles beneath the surface.
Surveillance video catches reactions from workers at a convenience store the moment a 3.8 magnitude earthquake hit today near the Alabama-Florida state line.
Surveillance video shows the shelves moving and the bottles shaking. All the action lasted about 3 seconds.
It was crazy. I felt crazy, but it wasn't crazy.
Enough to leave the clerk here shaken too.
You don't feel typically the ground move that strongly here.
Well, most of the people who grew up here say this is not the first time they've felt the earth shake, but this was definitely the strongest.
From Montana to the Mexico border, huge swaths of the western U.S. are burning. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometers have burned in California, Colorado, Arizona, Montana, Oregon, Utah, and Washington.
What we're experiencing this year is simply without precedent.
Amazing to hear you describe it as nature's kerosene in a way. I mean, it's just amazing what we're seeing happening. But
More than 100 major fires have now burned across 11 western states in what is rapidly becoming the worst fire season in American history.
With 3 months still to go until the end of wildfire season, this year has already produced historic destruction.
California's record-breaking heat wave has intensified the destructive wildfires burning across the state.
But the perfect recipe for a fire. This forest hasn't burned in decades. It's bone dry, and it's ready to explode.
Across California, more than 1 million acres burned just this week. In Butte County, a massive inferno is threatening the town of Paradise.
And tonight, the harrowing new images coming in. Look at this. This is a home near Oregon City, Oregon. And keep in mind, this image was captured in the middle of the day. Thousands have been forced from their homes there, entire neighborhoods destroyed tonight. In California, they are setting records.
Los Angeles has reported its highest ever temperature, an astonishing 49.4 degrees Celsius. That's 121 degrees Fahrenheit. I did not know thermometers could count that high.
From space, the entire West Coast smothered in smoke.
Oh my God, this looks really bad.
Tens of thousands of evacuees clogging roadways as they drove through that orange hellscape.
a widespread wildfire emergency spanning 3 states. High winds acting like natural kerosene, fueling more than 50 large wildfires in Washington, Oregon, and California alone.
An unprecedented year. 6 of California's largest wildfires ever have occurred in 2020. A record 3 million acres destroyed.
Lives lost and devastation as far as the eye can see.
A driver in Oregon filmed the dramatic scenes as an inferno engulfed the forest, while a bird's eye view reveals the total obliteration the fires left in their wake.
As we come on the air tonight, nearly 30 enormous and fast-moving blazes are burning across the state. Entire towns have now been wiped off the map.
After 2 fires there converged, it created explosive conditions.
In Oregon, a state of emergency declared as 36 wildfires burn across the state.
In Washington state, where one town lost City Hall, its post office, and the fire department.
We've got fires burning from in the north part of the state all the way to the Mexican border, about 800 miles between the furthest distant fires.
With hundreds of wildfires burning in a dozen western states, firefighters say whipping winds and record heat are helping fuel these epic conditions.
These wildfires have burned a record 3 million acres this year alone. That's more than 26 times what had burned by this point last year.
The smoke and ash in the atmosphere cast a glow over San Francisco in an eerie orange light.
It's apocalyptic.
I honestly felt like we're under attack or something.
This is very unusual. This is unprecedented, I think, for anyone.
A fiery glow that one resident said was like being inside a lit jack-o'-lantern.
This year it's hitting us harder than ever.
But the result can be disastrous, with flames spiraling out of control. Clouds of smoke in Brazil's Amazon are a common sight during the dry season. But this week they have grown, and fires are spreading into untouched areas. During the first week of September, more than 8,000 fires were reported in this part of the Amazon. That's twice the number of fires registered during the same period last year. More worrying still, a quarter of the major blazes have spread to the virgin rainforest. He says the situation will only get worse as the dry season intensifies. In August, there were an average of 18 major blazes a day. During the first week of September, that number went up to 53. But the Amazon isn't the only region in peril. Fires have also been burning in the Pantanal, the world's largest wetland, threatening endangered species. Since January, roughly 23,000 square kilometers have been burnt, an area 30 times the size of New York City.
In Karachi, floods batter the city, plunging Pakistan's financial capital into chaos. Since last week, people have had to contend with power cuts, mobile network outages, and shortages of both fuel and cash. Dozens of people have died as a result of the torrential downpours and widespread flooding. And anger is growing.
Typhoon Haishen has touched down on the Korean peninsula after hitting southern Japan.
Haishen came howling ashore, pummeling this southeast corner of South Korea, the second destructive typhoon within a matter of days.
Further up the east coast, a city surrounded by water.
This seafront restaurant was already extensively damaged by Typhoon Maisak last week. The same family have been running it for 40 years and say they've never experienced storms like these.
In North Korea, state TV pictures show the extent of the damage there. Heavy rain and strong winds left high waves that flooded streets and left buildings partially submerged in water. The country bore the brunt of recent typhoons, and there are fears of the damage being wrought on its agricultural sector and the country's tenuous food situation.
Already drenched from successive typhoons and unusually prolonged seasonal rains, there's been more flooding, especially along the peninsula's east coast, extending up into North Korea.
As the peninsula comes to terms with a spate of storms that has taken lives, closed businesses, cut power, and clogged the country's transport systems.
He and his neighbours wait anxiously to find out what the surrounding seas might throw at them next.
Sound the trumpet now. Hear the Father says, Rapture is coming. Don't get left behind. Don't get left behind. The rapture is coming. Don't get left behind. Don't get left behind.